Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Monday, February 11th, regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterloo City Council. We have a great crowd in chambers tonight. It's always good to see people involved in government and city processes. So welcome to all of you, and also welcome to those of you that might be watching us tonight on public access television. Madam Clerk, could you start us with the roll, please?
Yes, Ms. Cole.
Here.
Mr. Getty.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Schmidt.
Here.
Mr. Welper.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If all of you would please join me in standing for just a moment of prayer or silent reflection, it would be much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Our pledge tonight is going to be led by Carolyn Cole, our Ward 2 councilperson. Ms. Cole?
Please join me in the pledge to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hart?
I'd like to make a motion to approve an amended agenda, and those amendments are in number 14 and 15, and we're only adding after franchise fee, and it'll be approving the. So in 14 and 15, add those two words. Along with the amended agenda, I also move that we approve the minutes of February 4th regular session as proposed.
Second.
Council, do you have any questions at all regarding the minutes or the agenda? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is Nick Rossman here tonight? Nick, he's not here. Cheryl? Okay. As many of you know that watch regularly, once a month I recognize a team member of the month that has been nominated through our peers and department heads, and the February team member of the month comes from our library, and his name is Nick Rossman. And Nick just does a great job at the library, has served us well for quite some time, and I went to present him with his award last week at the library, and what I was struck with, that Nick was the only male in a whole bunch of girls over there, for crying out loud. So I'm not sure how he does that well, but he must do a great job. I think he does well with Councilman Schmidt. So anyway, congratulations, Nick, if you're watching on February's Team Member of the Month. You do great work for the city, and we appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hart?
I move that we receive, place on file, and approve the consent agenda items 1A through B23. And also with the approval of the consent agenda, I move that we pay our bills payment, which will be read by our finance chair.
The bills this week are $2,260,000, $2,260,899.31, 2,260,899.31.
Second.
Very good. Council, questions or comments regarding our consent agenda tonight? Roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please.
Ms. Cole.
Yes, on all of them. I will abstain on item 6.
Mr. Getty.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Welper.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Very good. The motion carries. And speaking of folks that do a good job for the city, our reappointment tonight, and I don't think Kevin is here either. I haven't seen him. Kevin, are you here? Kevin Evans? Don't see Kevin here, but Kevin is being reappointed to his second term on the Leisure Services Commission. Kevin's a longtime resident of Waterloo and has served in several different capacities, and he is currently on our Leisure Services Commission, so we appreciate everything that Kevin does for the city and for leisure services. So, with that said, we'll go on to item number 2, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schmidt.
Item number 2 is a motion to deny the New World Lounge 2, 504 Real Street renewal for a Class C liquor license permit application.
Second.
Okay. I believe what I'll do is, before we take a vote, there is a motion and a second. but before we take a vote, there's obviously many people here tonight that have concerns about this item, or at least I'm assuming there are. So while it is not a formal hearing, my policy has always been that when there are people here that would like to speak to something that's on our agenda, that I allow, within reason, comments regarding those items. So if there is anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against item number 2 tonight, I would invite you to come to the microphone. Please give us your name and your address, and I'm going to just watch the clock. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and I will remind you when your 3 minutes are up.
Sure.
Thank
My
you,
name
ma'am.
is Sharina Salas. I live at 1427 Dearborn in Waterloo. Mayor Clark, I thank you and the council persons for allowing me to speak on behalf of New World Bar and Grill. I'm not here today because I'm a commissioner. I'm here today because I actually am a patron of that establishment. Although I don't frequent the establishment on a weekly basis, I do patronize it. I have been there. I have eaten there. I take my son there. My father has gone there. And I can personally critique the food. If you haven't tried the rib tips, maybe you should come down and do so. Over the years, when I did not reside in Waterloo, New World was always a place when I would come home, that's one of the first places that I would visit. This place has sentimental value to the community and has always been known as a place where you could gather for food, a place to host your organization's events, and to express your individual identity through fashion and dance. What I'm here today to say is consideration has been given to other establishments like the business that took the place of where the KFC place was located. You gave consideration to that. Why not give consideration to this? What have you done to work directly with the owner to minimize the concerns that the city or the police department has? And it seems like anytime there's an African-American business that is open in this area, the first option and the only consideration is given is to non-renew their license. So that's what I wanted to say today, and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Ms. Salas, very much. Appreciate it. All right, is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mayor and Council, Leon Mosley, 99 Mosley Street, Waterloo, Iowa. I also am a patron of the establishment, and I want to ditto what she said about the food there. Plus, I think there's 10 to 13 employees that are working there. And I for one, like the place. My motorcycle group, we go through there and we have a good time. Not a problem. I've never seen a problem on the inside of the place at all. And in the parking lot, I know they patrol that, but you can't do anything about those streets. Those are public streets, and I know you can't do anything about them. He can't do anything about them. But I just would like for you to think about it when you think in terms of that whole corridor right there. He's got a nice establishment. But then you got 4 or 5 of those other stores there selling the alcohol, and then by the time they get to his place, they already intoxicated. And so what I would ask you to do is, like he said, please come down there and look at the place, visit the place. You come down at noon, they got the tacos out of this world. But I eat there, and I like the place, and I'm telling you, as far as I'm concerned, it's a nice, safe place.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Joyce Wilder. I live at 226 Bates, and I just want to talk on behalf of New World. I also go there for food. Chicken wings is great. My thing is, you have maybe 4 or 5 liquor stores on that street, and instead of considering closing New World, what about considering some of those liquor stores? I mean, if you want to help with the crime, as far as crime is concerned, let's look at the liquor stores. Okay, instead of looking at one particular bar. And anytime there's an incident, you know, it always seems like the bar is getting blamed for any incident on that area on Broadway Street. And that shouldn't be. So I just want you to think about that, because that's just like being at your house or you're hanging with a friend and everybody know this person as a bad person, but you're hanging with them, so they're going to consider you a bad person, but it's not. Let's give it a chance.
Thank you, Ms. Wilder.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pastor Belinda Creighton Smith. I reside at 416 Oliver Street. I wrote out my statement because I'm emotional about it, so I'm going to take my time, if it's okay with you, and read it. I won't be more than 2 minutes. To objectively consider the question of whether to grant New World its liquor license is a difficult one for me, a pastor and member of the community. Oftentimes, we want to ban so many things: bars, casinos, cigarettes, alcohol, and etc., failing to realize that God gave each of us free choice. On the other hand, to have some communities saturated with liquor stores disguised as convenience stores, and other alcohol-selling establishments needs to be challenged. However, that is not the issue concerning us tonight. As an aside, we did not close the liquor store when 23-year-old Rodriguez Jones was shot before dying in the 900 block of Broadway, or the one on East 4th Street where a young man was shot by a store clerk and killed. If we're going to close down all bars and all liquor stores where our young men and women are being shot and killed, that would be the only way we could justify closing this establishment. I empathize with those who feel the need to do something quick. That seems like it will address the problem, but unfortunately, some of the most discriminatory and detrimental policies we have on the books were a result of knee-jerk responses to the outcry of the public. There are some things that Mr. Phillip could do that would decrease the number of young people hanging out in the parking lot of his establishment rather than calling the police. And there are some things the city could do for young people who do not have access to safe means of socializing and recreational outlets in their community to do. Lastly, it is very important that we do not lose sight of the real issue today. Derek Ambrose was not killed by a young person that evening. He was killed by a Waterloo police officer. As painful and frightening as this is, it must be dealt with and not concealed or scapegoated by a proxy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Smith.
LaTanya Graves, 607 East Donald Street, Waterloo. And I just stand before you to say that Wayne has assisted and participated in the Juneteenth activities as well as sponsoring activities. So we can't condemn his establishment for things that go on because, as we know, things happen everywhere, in all parts of Waterloo, in all parts of Cedar Falls. So we can't just target his establishment and say that because of these different incidents, we're going to deny your liquor license. Because like as Reverend Belinda said and some others, if that was the case, then we need to be closing all of the establishments that sell liquor. Thank you.
Thank you, LaTanya. I tell you what, if I could, please, ladies and gentlemen, there's an awful lot of you out here tonight. I'm going to take like 2 more people, if that's acceptable to everybody. And then what I'd like to do is get a show of hands from everybody in the audience that supports the New World Lounge instead of hearing for everybody. So let's hear from a couple more people, and then I'm going to ask for just a show of hands of all of those that support the facility. And if there are some in opposition, then I will give them an opportunity to speak also. Yes, sir.
I'm Mike Beckman. I own the property that New World presides on. I've gotten a few letters over the time that I've had this sold to Wayne. Before I sold it to Wayne, I met with my attorney and I met with the chief of police. I believe at that time was Officer Beckman, no relation to myself. I said, hey, if there's any problems or anything of that, I'd like it brought to my attention, all that sort of thing. He assured me now, I'm aware that he is retired now, and I haven't talked to the new chief of police other than I did work in Green Bay for 11 years, so I'm pretty familiar with Door County. I guess I personally have been there several times. Here's where I'm a little frustrated. I'm standing here today, and I only know half the facts. I can close that bar down in 30 days. I'm the contract holder of that property. I had a friend of mine say to me on Saturday, ask me a question what was going on, and I'm like, I have no clue what's going on. What are you talking about? But yet I get a letter in the mail if there's an ounce of litter or the grass is a little bit longer than it's supposed to be and all these sort of things, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. But I was a little upset when I found out, well, I'm standing here right now and I really don't know why the liquor license is being denied. I have an idea because I've had...
I think that's going to be explained. So.
Okay, but all this started before that was ever explained. So I'm standing here going, I don't really understand why.
Okay.
I have talked to 2 of the council members and I did talk to the mayor. I guess, you know, from my standpoint, and when I talked to the mayor today, we as a city, you invite companies in, you give tax abatements, you do all these things to make a better city, a safer place, to make a city bigger, better, all those sort of things. We have a business here. Now, nobody likes some of the bad things that have happened in that area. But there are no tax abatements going on there.
You got 1 minute.
All right, no tax abatements. The taxes are being paid. It's an ongoing business. Every time I've ever been in there, it's been packed in there. I mean, you know, it's not my favorite place to go because I don't live there. But I mean, as far as, you know, as an owner, I have a huge investment in that thing, and I haven't had an issue with it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
But I guess my question that I would like to know before we go any farther is, why exactly is the liquor license being, I would think that somebody should at least explain that, or let's
Okay.
go from there and then.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to voice our opinion this afternoon. My name is Tawanda Hackett. I reside at 111 Kern Street in Waterloo, Iowa. I am owner of New World Lounge. And same as Mr. Beckman here, I am appalled of why our license is not being renewed, or why is it even being looked at so early. I have no idea. We try to keep that place as safe as possible. It's not only a bar, it's a bar and grill, and lots of families love to come there to eat and bring their children and enjoy being at New World Lounge. And the things that happens outside and on the streets, we are not always able to stop those things. Talking to the police officers before we opened over there, we know what to do. When something goes on and we can't handle it, we were to call them, and that's what we do. I don't understand why we're being blamed for anything that happens outside that we can't take care of. But I assure you that we do everything in our possible power to keep that place safe, inside and outside, to our ability.
Okay.
And we thank you for
Thanks,
having us
Tawanda.
here today.
Okay, I think Mr. Goodson, and then that's all. That's all.
I'm David Goodson, and I frequent the bar also, but Wayne P., I don't drink the alcohol, but I eat the catfish. So I just want to say one thing. Council, did you read the newspaper last night? Well, City Attorney Jim Walsh, what he said was, and for those of you who didn't read it, my glasses, City Attorney Jim Walsh, basically what he says is you have to tie it to the management of the establishment, he said. It has to be something to do with the bar and not problems in the neighborhood. So I just encourage you to take your attorney's advice, because you tend to in other matters.
Thank you, Mr. Goodson. Tell you what we're going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, in lieu of any other, again, I'm hearing a lot of support, and I'm assuming there's still a lot out there. If I could just get, please, a show of hands from those in the audience that are here in support of the New World Lounge. Okay, it looks like most everybody. Very good, thank you. Is there anyone here that is in opposition to the license at the New World that would like to speak? Okay, very good. Council, do you have questions? Actually, why don't we start, Director Trelka, your office is the one that has recommended denial. What is that based on, please?
Dan Trelka, Director of Safety Services. We recommended denial in September of 2012 when the application was filed. It was filed timely, but there was other information that the city was waiting on before it came in front of the council. So this is an action we took in September. But I have Sergeant Greenlee here. Sergeant Greenlee vets all of our liquor licenses with a process established by the state. As a matter of fact, he got state involved in this particular issue, and he's going to articulate exactly why it was.
Very good. Sergeant Greenlee, why don't you give us what you have there, please?
During my time as our public resource officer for the police department, one of my jobs is to review liquor license applications and also renewals. What I did during that process is look at the calls for service at the location to determine what type of activity we're seeing there. I also get copies of reports from officers that have had incidents take place there. I've also talked specifically with a couple of these officers about their concerns with this. After I looked at the total calls, I then separated out what we would consider a trouble call, which would be something for the effect of a fight, an assault, loud music, those types of things. I then give those numbers to Captain Leibold, who was my immediate supervisor at the time, and discuss it with him. And then between him and Director Trelka, they make a determination on whether or not to deny or approve those applications.
Okay, so your consideration to deny was based primarily on the volume of calls either to the establishment or in the area of the establishment?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Sergeant Greenlee. Council, questions of Sergeant Greenlee or of Director Trelka? The discussion's over, okay?
I just wanted to ask you if there was a public guideline that...
Oh, there is no public guideline. It's a determination made after it's looked at. Council, questions?
Mayor Clark, are you not allowing anyone else to speak or say anything different regarding this? Because that same process was used for groomers who had been in business for 2 years, had 22 service calls, and you still moved the same process the same way.
Okay, thank you, Sharina, but not right now. We're going to end the discussion from the audience, and we're going to have a council discussion. Okay. I'm sorry, did anybody have questions?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
According to the report that you gave us, we had 135 total calls in a 12-month calendar year, and 78 were trouble calls.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
What was the breakdown of those calls? Was it 78 all fights? Was it 25 loud? What were the breakdown of the 78
There were a
calls?
variety of those different types of calls. Mr. Hart clearly defined it by memo. Specifically, each call was indicated.
It didn't break it down, though. It didn't break it down under that 78. It just gave parentheses. Is it on there?
Weapons, disorderly, loud, loitering, fights, etc.
Right.
Sergeant Greenlee prepared a report where a memo where he broke down each and every single call. That's the call I referenced in my email to you, or the report I referenced the email into you, but you don't have a copy of that right now, but I made it available to you if you wanted it. But the way the calls broke down is out of those 78 trouble calls, 54 of those calls were called in by neighbors or the police department. And out of those 54 calls, half of them resulted in a warning, an arrest, or a citation from September 2011 till September 2012. In addition to that, we conducted an audit. The state came in and conducted an audit, and the audit is what raised additional concerns that additionally led to this denial, and Sergeant Greenlee can get into that.
Would you like me to elaborate on the audit?
Yeah, please tell us about the audit. I think there's been
the
some
audit
questions.
came as a result from Sergeant Matt McHugh, who is, oversees our violent crime apprehension team, and deals a lot with the hours where these trouble calls were taking place. One of the questions he asked me was, why are there so many minors? Why are we seeing minors in the bar? Mr. Phillips and Ms. Hackett stated that they are considered a restaurant, and from what I've read from the 2010 agenda minutes, that was one of the contingencies that the council approved this license, that more than 50% of their revenue would be from food. Mm-hmm. The only way to specifically figure that out is to, quite frankly, go through their books and see what percentage is food, what percentage is alcohol. I called they have one investigator for the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division for the entire state. I called Jeremy Coleman, that's his name, and asked him if he would come up and assist me with this audit, just because of the time constraints and the amount of time it takes to do this audit. He came up with me, I believe it was on March 8th of last year. We went to the business during the daytime. We made contact with a female employee at the time, then we had Mr. Phillips show up there a short time later. And Mr. Coleman did the majority of the audit. He obviously is their expert on this. He's a field investigator for their finances. He got, I believe, at least 2, if not 3 months of receipts from Mr. Phillips, and was not able to get any more at the time because they were not on hand at the bar, and that is a requirement from the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division that you keep 1 year of your receipts at the bar. He did tell Mr. Coleman that he had they were with his accountant and that he could get them to him. So Mr. Coleman at that time and I took the receipts back that we had, made copies of them, brought the originals back to the business, and then Mr. Coleman took the audit from there.
And what did the audit show?
They use a point of sale system on the register, which is a code for whether food or it's alcohol or miscellaneous items. According to the information that Mr. Phillips gave us as far as what the codes were, he gave those to Mr. Coleman. The initial findings were that 60% of their revenue was from alcohol and 40% was from food. Now, after a period of time, Mr. Phillips apparently called Mr. Coleman and informed him that he had given him the wrong point of sale codes. And Mr. Coleman refigured those amounts, and I believe it was roughly 70% food, 30% alcohol.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Sergeant Greenlee, did they require any, who was the guy from the alcohol beverage again?
Jeremy Coleman.
Did he call after that to ask for more paperwork from the accountant?
Yes, he did. He
was not able to get that?
What was that, sir?
And he was not able to get that information?
He was not able to get everything he needed from what he's told me. There was a discrepancy. Mr. Phillips said his accountant had it. His accountant stated that apparently he never got it from Mr. Phillips, so there were some discrepancies there when Mr. Coleman was doing his investigation.
Mr. Phillips, speak to that.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I would allow Mr. Phillips, if you would like to speak to that, that would be fine. Step to the microphone, please, sir.
Hello, I'm Mr. Phillips. I was there for the audit. I gave them what they wanted, and as he said, excuse me, I'm a little nervous right now, but
you're doing fine. You're okay.
Wow. They did the audit. Everything was fine. When he called, I asked him, was everything fine? He said yes. I asked him 3 or 4 times. He said yes. I said, are we doing something wrong so I can fix it, get it right? And he said no. And to the thing that he just said about something was a mix-up, it was. Reed told him something about the register that was backwards. So when I got there, I told him what it was and straightened it out. As far as I know, that man told me everything was fine.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, very much. Counsel, do you have anything further? Mr. Schmidt?
Dan, can you give us an idea of what the number of service calls are for the rest of the establishments on Broadway?
I would have to look to be certain, Mr. Schmidt.
Could I please have order in the crowds, please, please, please? Thank you.
Out of all the calls we respond to bars and restaurants, this happens to be one of the higher amounts. We have other bars that are up there as well. As a matter of fact, other bars that we're considering doing audits with, or restaurants, because we're experiencing the same problems, but not to this extent.
Are you talking about establishments along the Broadway corridor,
right,
or just that business, the corridor establishments?
I can check. I don't know off the top of my head, but
Sergeant
we can
Greenlee, do you have that
definitely
information?
check.
I don't have it. What we'd have to do is run a call report with our computer system. That's how I do it every 12 months when we are doing renewals.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess my question was, several folks have mentioned the liquor stores that are in that neighborhood, the convenience stores, that type of thing. I mean, is 122, so that's an extraordinarily high number compared to the other ones, or is that a little higher but not so high? Or, I mean, I don't expect to hold you exactly to those numbers, because I know you weren't expecting this, but.
No, I wish I could tell you right offhand. The problem with having them all here is one business renews, say in May, one business renews in October, I'd have to take all of those together and then put a comparison down as far as where their levels are.
Gotcha.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Welper?
Sergeant, since the state has the final say whether the license is granted or not, have they given any indication to you that they're uncomfortable with the numbers for calls for service there, as well as the audit?
As far as calls for service, they leave that normally to the local authority. They haven't expressed any concern on the calls for service, nor have they with any other establishment. However, Mr. Coleman did tell me because of the discrepancies in the audit, he felt it was worthwhile to have an assistant attorney general review the documentation that he completed on it. I have not heard at this point. I requested it last week to see if he's heard anything. Have not gotten a reply from him yet on that.
Okay, so should we pass it this evening, the state still could deny the license?
They could, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, Mr. Greenlee, could you explain the rules around controlling the parking lot and what that means and what the requirement is?
Sure. A few years ago, the Iowa legislature passed a law that basically made it the responsibility of an establishment with a liquor license to be responsible for the licensed premises and the parking lot and areas surrounding that business. It's their responsibility, and it can't affect their license. So it is the responsibility of a business to, in a way, patrol their parking lots to make sure there are not any issues out there, as much as it is the responsibility inside.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple questions. In regards to Broadway and that whole corridor, I've probably been one of the most vocal people about things that were taking place over there for the residents, from the liquor stores to establishments. But I guess one thing that concerns me, that in regards to this particular location, the only option that we actually have before us tonight is a motion to deny it. Specifically in regards to the KFC site, we had some questions and concerns about that. And that establishment knowingly, not accident, this happened, knowingly broke the rules, knowingly. And so that came back. A lot of us had our heels dug in. We said, no, it's closed, stuck to our word. And then there was some type of resolution that was worked out. When we take a look at, I think it was brought up, and this is a pattern that I'm seeing, take a look at rumors that was downtown, 22 calls for service. And then when we get, the chief and I both visited the establishment, and we get there, and some of those service calls weren't even for that establishment. But our only option was to take away their liquor license for X amount of time. We've seen places that have had selling to minors in some of those places, but the option to deny was never on the plate in regards to coming back from the law enforcement to those establishments, the majority of them. It was when the council became proactive and said, even though they're going to do that, we're going to step up. But we have a place here who seems like they're willing to work. A council member and I visited the establishment as well, sat down, ate, talked to some of the people at that establishment, and it's just as if, why is that the only option to deny? Is there some type of resolution that we can work with to kind of help quell some of the situations there? Is there more security that the establishment can get, or some recommendations that we can make to them to try to help with this situation? You have 75 people in the audience today, not all young people, that are telling you that this is an establishment that they would like to see here, and whatever it takes for us to work with them to try to make that happen. I mean, I'm just not understanding why that is not an actual option. You know, last Thursday during the agenda meeting, one of the things that was stated during that time was, okay, you didn't complete the paperwork that was given by planning and zoning in a timely manner, so that's an option to deny it. Then we take a look and get the list, and I have the list right here, and I can go through 15, 20 names of establishments that didn't have that paperwork, or they signed it late. And so that was one of the reasons to deny it. You know, we take a look at who have we actually audited before. According to the paperwork that I got from Eric Schrader, the audit is supposed to be solicited by the mayor or the city council. So then you talk to the ABD, and, you know, I'm being told they got an anonymous call. Then I get an email, and another officer seeing younger people on the establishment at a certain time and saying that there's not enough food being sold at that particular time. Well, it's 12, 1 o'clock at night. You're probably not going to sell as much food at night as you do in the daytime. So you talk to the owners, supposedly no young people are in the bar under 21 after 10 o'clock. But I'm saying we have something here of value. We have a place of value. What can we do to be proactive in helping keep this place open? There's not too many other bars and grills, you know, ran by minorities in this city. What can we do to keep this place open, work together, open up the lines of the communication between Sergeant Greenlee, Tawan and Wayne? What can we do to open up those lines of communication and get this place where it needs to be? What can we do? What options do we have to make that happen? That's what I'm interested in, because we got folks saying they want it. What can we do to make sure we strengthen everything that we need to do to make it a viable place that we can work with?
You're asking me that specifically, Mr. Hart, are you?
Please.
Would you repeat that?
You know,
It's a sociological treatise.
I mean, I am one person, obviously, and I'm not currently doing the public resource job anymore. Sergeant Fangman, that's been turned over to him as of the first of the year. But some things that we have done with businesses in the past is worked with them as far as recommending some steps that they take. Sometimes it's about reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it's very specific to a certain business what is going to be the best corrective action to make the place more successful with low amounts of calls and a high amount of safety. So for me to be able to tell you exactly what the New World 2 needs to do to make that place safe, enjoyable, and not having any issues, I can't tell you that right now. It would be a work in progress that they would need to look at along with us.
I would also make a suggestion that depending on how council votes, period, I mean, you might deny it, it's kind of a moot point, but if you did choose to approve it, you could always choose it, I think, no, on a 6-month provisional?
They have to apply for 6 months, so we
Okay.
would basically have to table tonight and ask
Okay.
them to withdraw their application and reapply at the 6 months.
Okay, cancel that. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Mayor, the 122 calls, they were to this facility.
135 total, and then it was 78 of those were trouble calls. They were
They were-
specific to that address when I ran the search.
Not the neighborhood, not down the street, to that facility.
No, the specific calls in the remarks, it would state loud music coming from vehicles in the parking lot. That was an exact quote from one of the calls. When our officers go there, they obviously check that out. If they see an issue to take enforcement, then they will. If they don't, they don't.
So, I guess, and I just have one other quick question. I don't know if it might be for Mr. Phillips or somebody else, but if, in fact, the audit showed 70% of the business is from food and not from alcohol, I mean, we're not shutting the place down. What we're talking about is a liquor license. So if 70% of the business is from food and soda and coffee and whatever, I mean, I understand that's going to be an impact, but I mean, it seems to me they could still stay in business. So I don't know, Mr. Phillips, if you want to comment on that, or if anybody else does.
Yes, because sometimes...
Please step to the microphone, ma'am, please. Just, they can't hear you on television if you're talking from the audience.
I don't see a reason to deny a couple or a family that's coming to do an anniversary dinner or something, to deny them to have a drink of wine or a beer with their meal, and we would need our license in order to do that. And I don't understand why it would be taken. Our business, yeah, can still be open, but we will be not giving to the people what they're coming for. Any other restaurant you go to, people have drinks with their meal. I mean, it's a given everywhere. So that's what I got to say about that.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jones?
Back to Sergeant Greenlee, if we could. The 78 trouble calls, were any of them inside the establishment or in the parking lot itself?
Both.
So inside and out?
There were calls inside, some fights. The loud complaints were, other than I believe a couple of them were involving vehicles in the parking lot, there was a couple of complaints I remember going through that stated loud music coming from the New World. That was what some neighbors reported.
So could there be somebody walks out and leave the door open a little bit too long and people can hear the music?
Yes.
And so of the 54 residential calls, 27 you said ended up with warnings, citations, or possible arrest. Do you have any lines of communication, or you said it may be Officer Fangman, what if they actually initiate the call? We have some record of those types of calls as well, where the bar actually initiates those calls?
Yes. If we do get a call from an employee, in the remarks it'll say bar called, or it'll, in the name of the reporting party, it will say owner, or it will say a name in there. So there would be record of those in there.
And in regards to the young people being there on whatever the nights are, do they have any alcohol violations, selling to minors, or?
We had a couple of complaints about it. However, the two that I can recall from the records were unfounded. We could not find anybody who had been consuming that was underage.
So there's no violations right now?
No.
Okay, can we move forward, council? I'm sorry, no, let's.
Mr. Mayor, we got 12 to 13 employees that can possibly lose their job.
Okay.
You know, I don't, if
Okay,
we can
that's
let a
fine.
few more people at least.
That's
you know,
fine.
3 minutes,
Yes, sir.
less than 3 minutes. You got to come
Yes,
to the
sir.
mic.
Tony Jenkins, 2739 East 4th Street. From what I'm hearing, y'all trying to say that all these calls are because of the alcohol being consumed. There are people that actually come from other establishments, whether it be Jameson's, the Winning Edge, other bars, other bar and grills, which actually, after they have consumed it and come down to New World, but they're taking the blame for this. Okay, so y'all consider that as to the alcohol being consumed somewhere else, and then they coming down there, and whether things get out of hand in the parking lot, in the streets, does not mean that this alcohol is actually being consumed in there, and all the hostility that's coming out of this is coming out of there, is coming from another bar, coming down there, and that's where it all just happens to just get the police calls from, okay? So take that into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. All right, at Mr. Hart's request, is there anyone else? All right.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just
You're
like to
welcome, sir.
conclude by asking the council to please support them getting their license back, and also if there's any ways that we can work with law enforcement to engage a little bit more in a peaceful manner, but work with them to maybe help secure the parameters around the building. But I mean, I think we got enough decent folks in here that we should give them that opportunity to do that. So that would be what I would ask the council to do.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hart. Well said. I am going to call for the question here, and unfortunately, the wording on the motion is in the negative, which always confuses things just a little bit, or seems to. So I would ask, as we have a roll call vote, to please keep in mind that if you vote yes, you are denying the license. If you vote no, you are approving, no, I'm sorry. Yes, you are approving the license, okay? But if the noes carry, then we are going to need a motion to approve the license and another vote for that. So just keep that in mind. So please, as we go around, yes is to deny the license, no is to approve the license. And then if that carries, we will have to have another motion to approve. So please, yes is to deny, no is to approve, which hopefully we'll never ever have another negative on the agenda again.
Double negative.
Madam Clerk, would you read the roll, please?
Mr. Getty?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
No.
Mr. Hart?
No.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
All right, the noes prevail, which means the denial is turned down. Thank you. Okay. Now, if I could just have a motion from someone to approve the license, and a second, we'll have another roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the license
Why don't you go ahead and read the whole thing there, just with the...
for Class C liquor license permit application for New World Lounge, 504 Real Street, including Sunday sales, expires 9/14/2013.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Very good. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please.
Is there any discussion around that, or is?
If you'd like, what's the discussion
Just
around it, David?
a little bit that, you know, I think we all need to work a little harder on what's going on in the parking lot as well. I mean, if we do have to do that. I mean, so, you know, I will support the liquor license, but more has to be done. It can't just be, my understanding is they have to control the parking lot. It can't just be best effort, but actual control. So this has to really be taken care of and taken seriously and worked with.
I think that's a point well taken, Mr. Jones.
And also keeping that paperwork on hand as well.
Maybe this could be for the owners, kind of a wake-up call, if for lack of a better word, that, you know, there will be some oversight on what goes on in the parking lot, and that you need to keep those records that are required by the state handy. So there is a motion and a second to approve the license application, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I could, no, that's fine. If I could ask one other question too, following up with Mr. Jones. You know, I'm certainly empathetic and sympathetic of this business staying in business. We're always supportive of that. But I am concerned about the number of calls. I mean, the police department didn't just pull this out of the air. There's a reason for this, and as we're in the middle of budgets and we talk about how we're short of staff, and especially for the police department, we've got a number of folks here I know from the West Central neighborhood. Maybe part of the reason the police can't be in the West Central neighborhood is because they're dealing with all these other calls. I mean, we've got to start kind of taking this stuff into consideration. Having said that, would there be, so if we approve this, are we not going to then do a look back for another year? Or if these numbers don't get better, would we have an opportunity to have an impact? Because if that's the answer, then I would ask Councilman Cole if you would, or excuse me, Councilman Hart, if you would consider making this a 6-month application so we have that opportunity.
Well, again, we can't arbitrarily do the 6-month thing, Councilman Schmidt. Unfortunately, that has to come from the applicant, and it would only come with denial of the license. And the answer to your first part of your question is this approval will be for a renewal for 1 year. Now, I would assume that council and the police department always has the opportunity, if there are terrible things happening and the calls increase, I mean, council always has the opportunity to come back and to pull the license from an establishment. So, you know, you have that authority. You issue them, you can also revoke them. That would be, you can certainly ask for a review from the police department within 6 months to kind of go over the calls for service, et cetera, and make a determination yourself whether you'd like to revoke the license. But the license as it stands tonight, if passed, will be for 1 year.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody further? Anyone further?
Call the question.
Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
No.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
No.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Very, excuse me, very good. The motion does carry. Ladies and gentlemen, the New World Lounge will get its renewal. So, ladies, just if we can, if all y'all want to stay, that's great. If you're going to not stay, I'd ask that you kind of leave orderly now so we can go on with business. Thank you.
sheet that have a card on it?
Should we just hold up our meeting for a couple minutes, Sean?
Do it quickly there, Mr. Trelka. I mean, he can wait till after the meeting also. Thank you. If y'all could please move it outside in the back, please. Thank you very much. Mr. Hart?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing for the FY 2013 San Souci Wing Dam Repairs Contract number 846.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any written objections on file to this item?
There were none.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against the wing dam repairs contract? Second time.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the hearing.
Second.
Council, do you have any questions or concerns? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution confirming approval of plan, specification, form of contract, etc.
Second.
It's a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution ordering construction.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we receive and file and instruct city clerk to open and read bids and refer to city engineer for review.
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have 4 bids tonight with an engineer's estimate at $260,280 on this particular item. Madam Clerk, please.
The first bid is from Gerke Inc. of Eldora, Iowa. The bid bond is for 5%. And the total bid price is for $183,320, 183,320.00.
Wow.
The next bid is from Peterson Contractors, Inc. of Rhinebeck, Iowa. Their bid bond is for 5%. Their bid is for $171,922, 171,922.00. The next bid is from Stickfort Construction of Hudson, Iowa. Their bid bond is for 5%. And their total bid is for $154,562, 154,562.00. The final bid is from Beath Construction Corp. of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Their bid bond is for 5%. And their total bid price is $197,375, 197,375.
Very good, Madam Clerk, thank you very much. Eric, thank you. Good numbers. Good numbers. All right, if we could move on to resolutions, please, and let's take 4, 5, and 6.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schmidt?
Item number 4, I'd like to adopt a resolution accepting and approving grant agreement with Iowa Department of Transportation for traffic safety funds in the amount of $250,000 to be used to improve several signalized intersections along Washington Street / US 218 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. Item number 5 is adopting a resolution accepting and approving a grant agreement with Iowa Department of Transportation in the amount of $20,000 for radio broadcast safety awareness campaign, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. And item number 6 is adopting a resolution approving contract renewal with Aramark Uniform Services for a period of 5 years with a 3% annual increase, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
Council, do you have any questions or comments regarding 4, 5, or 6? Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Motion's carry. Next 3, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Cole?
7 is a resolution approving facilities maintenance plan with Envision Architecture in the amount of $27,000, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said document. 8, a resolution approving a service agreement with Halverson Train of Clive for up to 50 block hours at the rate of $116.15 per hour of technician maintenance, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said document. 9 is a resolution approving a request by ABCM Corporation for an encroachment agreement to allow for the construction of a new sign located within the right-of-way, which will replace 2 existing signs within the right-of-way located at 2950 West Shawless Road.
Second.
Very good. Council, questions or comments regarding 7, 8, or 9? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Mayor, on number 9, the new sign, they've got that slated to be constructed 12 inches from the bike path, which I think is too close to the bike path.
Okay.
And the impression I got was it was kind of like take it or leave it. They were going to either do it or, well, there was no other option.
Okay. Eric or Noel, whose bailiwick is that to speak to that location? Or, oh, I'm sorry, Eric's here. Eric?
Eric Schrader, city planner. We did review after the agenda meeting. It was kind of discussed if it could, that distance could be increased perhaps to like 2 feet. We did review that with the applicant and the applicant's sign contractor. The proposed sign is essentially the same size as the 2 existing ones to be removed, and they noted that as it's currently proposed, they've got basically just over a foot. He said there's a little over a foot, but not too much more. If they tried to go to 2 feet, because of the distance between the bike path and their parking lot, they would either have to push the sign into their parking lot or reduce the sign. So they weren't, you know, kind of that discussion of could you do 2 foot instead of the 1 foot. They weren't real eager because that's going to either mean decreasing the size of the sign or pushing it into their parking lot a little bit. But, you know, they did note whatever they'd have to do, whatever they can get approved is what they'll have to live with. So there may be a little bit more than 1 foot, but he said there's definitely less than 2 feet.
Okay, that's for the...
For the size sign
that they're
currently being
proposing.
proposed. Yeah.
So if this fails, they could reduce the size of the sign and make it work.
Or alternatively, if, you know, there is concern at 1 foot, but, you know, less concern at 2 foot, it could be approved as such, and they'll just have to do one of those 2 options. Move it slightly onto their parking area or decrease the size. I assume they would decrease the size, but.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schmidt?
Could we back up a minute again then? So what is the current distance today?
A foot.
Current sign?
Pretty close to a foot. I mean, we didn't go out and actually measure it, but it should be right at a foot or just a little over a foot.
So the current sign is a foot and the
Current
new...
2 signs.
And the new sign's going to be a foot?
Yep.
Okay.
Further?
Well, the current signs, having ridden that portion quite often, the current sign blocks the vision to their, when they exit, when the cars exit that area as well. And it is too close now, so I wouldn't suggest replacing it with the same sign. 18 inches would probably be fine. 12 inches isn't.
Okay. If...
Oh, no.
procedurally, if Mr. Jones wanted to make another motion with that in mind, can he do that at this time? Or how does that work, Madam Clerk?
He could make a motion to amend the
Do we- so
resolution to,
Do we have to vote on the motion and the second that's on the floor now before he could do that?
no, he could ask to amend the motion to state that the location has to be at least 18 inches from the bike path. So he would just be amending the current motion.
Okay, that's your pleasure, Mr. Jones.
Okay, then I will do that. I will make a motion to adopt a resolution approving request by ABCM Corporation for an encroachment agreement to allow for the construction of a new sign located within the right-of-way at a minimum of 18 inches from the existing bike path to replace 2 existing signs within the right-of-way located at 2950 West Shawless Road.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second on Mr. Jones's.
It's actually, yeah, it's just actually an amendment to the current motion. So we're just voting on that motion, and then we still have to, or we're voting on that amendment, and then we still have to vote on the current motion.
So we vote on the amendment first?
Vote on the amendment first.
Okay, we're voting on the amendment, Mr. Jones's amendment first. And that's a roll call vote on, could we separate the votes, Madam Clerk? Can we vote on 7 and 8, and then we vote on 9?
We need to just vote on the amendment.
Okay, we vote on the amendment first, sorry. Thank you for your expertise in Robert's Rules of Orders. We're voting on the amendment only, Mr. Jones' amendment. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Very good. Mr. Jones' amendment passes. So then we still have to dispose of the other one?
We do
Now
them
we can
all
vote
together.
on all 3 of them at
Okay,
once, yeah?
now we can vote on all 3 altogether.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
No on number 7, yes on number 8 and 9.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Interesting stuff.
Mr.
Next
Mayor?
3, 10, 11, 12, Mr. Getty, please.
Item 10 is a resolution setting the date of hearing as February 25th, 2013, to vacate, sell, and convey a portion of West San Martin Drive, generally located between Galactic Drive and West 4th Street, west of Amesboro Avenue, to Sunnyside South Addition, LLC, for $1, and instruct the city clerk to publish that notice. Item 11 is a resolution setting the date of hearing as February 25th, 2013, to amend the development agreement approved January 7th, 2013, with Sunnyside South Addition LLC to update the legal description of the project area generally located between Galactic Drive and West 4th Street, west of Amesboro Avenue, and instruct the city clerk to publish that notice. Item number 12 is a resolution setting the date of hearing as March 4th, 2013, to approve the FYE 2014 budget and instruct the city clerk to publish that notice.
Second.
Very good. Motion and second. Council, do you have any questions on 10, 11, or 12? Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr.
13, 14, and 15, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hart.
move to adopt a resolution setting date of hearing as February 25th, 2013, to approve the request of Tony Huff to vacate the east 4 feet of a platted 16-foot wide sanitary sewer at the northeast corner of Bismarck Avenue and Amesboro Avenue located in Galloway First Edition, and instruct city clerk to publish notice. In 14, I move to adopt a resolution setting date of hearing for February 18th, 2013. In 14, to approve the amendment to electric franchise fee. And in 15, for the amendment to approve the natural gas franchise fee, and approving the statement of revenue purpose, and instruct the city clerk to publish notice.
Second.
Very good. Council, questions or comments on 13, 14, and 15? Mr. Anderson.
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. And under number 13, the third line there, it says sanitary sewer. The word easement should be after that.
So it should be sanitary sewer easement?
Correct.
Very good. Thank you for catching that, Mr. Anderson. And for matter of record, that will state that. Now,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schmidt.
I was wondering, is there any chance that 14 and 15 could be delayed a week, as I will be gone next week, or from a timing standpoint, is it critical that that's the date that happens?
I would love to do that, Mr. Schmidt. My answer to you would be that if council, if we wait till the 25th and council doesn't pass the franchise fee, then we will have 1 week to do an awful lot of work and not very much time to do it. If it goes on the 18th and it doesn't pass, then we have 2 weeks to at least try to figure out how to balance the budget. So I much prefer, and as I told you in the agenda meeting, I sincerely apologize because I know that you would like to be here to do that. We could do a conference call if you'd like, but I much prefer to do it on the 18th so we have time, should it not pass, to work on it.
And then I would then like to request to have a speakerphone set up if we could.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
We can certainly do that. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. So, further comments, questions? It's a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Very good. Motion's carried. Last item, number 16, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Cole.
I move we instruct city engineer to prepare plans, specs, form of contract for the FY 2013 asphalt overlay program, contract number 833.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move we receive and file plans, specs, form of contract, etc.
Second.
Council, do you have any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move we adopt a resolution preliminarily approving plans, specifications, form of contract, etc.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I move we adopt a resolution setting date of hearing and bid opening as February 25th, 2013, and instruct city clerk to publish notice of plan, specs, form of contract.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Very good. Item 16 carries. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our regularly scheduled business tonight. We had some good stuff, some important stuff, and good comments, but it is time for oral presentation. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to mayor and council, now is the time to do so. Please step to the microphone, give us your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Carol Gustafson. I live at 209 Forest Avenue in Waterloo, and I am the president of the West Central Neighborhood Association. Since the last time that we came to visit, I have been spending some time with the city ordinances. I know that Jim Chapman had talked to Dan about the nuisance ordinances that are on the books in Cedar Rapids and Dubuque, and so I thought before we start encouraging you guys to adopt something that we should look and see if we already have something on the books. And lo and behold, we do. We have references to nuisance properties in 5 different chapters of our ordinances, and I really think that this gives us some good grounds to do some follow-up work. I don't think that this is an issue just for law enforcement. I think it also needs to be included in community development. I think that we need to sit and talk with the code enforcement, with the city inspector, and try to have a comprehensive meeting to talk about all of the different issues that could be impacting what we're seeing in our neighborhood. Just a couple questions I wanted to ask, and Ethel, if you have that answer now, fine, and if not, maybe we can trade phone calls. But are any of the apartments that are south of Old Byron Street, Hy-Vee, to the best of your knowledge, Section 8 or HUD housing? There are a couple of them. Okay, because definitely, you know, those units that fall under those, you know, certainly would be something that we could address immediately without having to do anything else. So I just wanted to let you know that we have been working on it. We're not expecting you to do all of our work. We are doing the best that we can to identify those things that we think could be key issues that we could focus in on, and then we need your help to try and put it in place and see if we can come up with a plan of action. So
Thanks,
thank
Carol.
you so much.
You bet. Anyone else?
Theodore Lederman, 1758 Pinehurst Lane, Waterloo, Iowa. I'm a retired physician, and I wanted to talk to you just a minute about the city budget. I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and a number of cities in the country are going bankrupt because of cost of health insurance and pension plans. And the Wall Street Journal recommends in its editorial that the cities be transparent in the costs of their pension plans and in their medical costs. About 6 months ago, Mr. Mayor, I saw in the paper that you had reached an arrangement with the city employees for them to pay $20 per month for their health insurance. What I have here, and I wanted to give to you, is Wheaton Franciscan Healthcare payment schedules for their employees. The health care that the city provides for its workers, and I'm for city workers, and I'm for supplying them health care, where they pay $20 a month. Their care and their coverage is much greater than the best care that an employee would get at Covenant. If an employee is at Covenant and he or she elects for enhanced care, which is the best care that Covenant has for their employees, the amount that they would pay monthly for one person is $334. For a family, it's $729. Now, if we compare that to $20 per month for a city employee pays $240 a year, which does not equal the cost to an employee of Covenant of $334 a month for one person. So I think if we're looking at cutting government costs, we should look at the health care, and we should also look at the cost of the premium and compare it to Covenant. And the reason why I'd like it to be compared to Covenant is because we're comparing service organizations. The city functions as a service, and Covenant functions as a service. And to be transparent, I'd like this to be published in the paper, what the employees of the city are paying toward their health care, what the city premiums are, and compare it to Covenant.
Okay. Mr. Lederman,
Let me leave this
sure,
here.
absolutely.
Does someone
Cheryl,
want
if
to
you
pick
could
this
get
up?
that. I believe those numbers that you asked for, I believe, are published. They're all public numbers. So I believe they have been published and will be in the future. So thank you, Mr. Lederman.
I haven't seen them, Mr. Mayor. Do you know where they're published?
If you come to the clerk's office, we would be glad to give them to you. And when the contracts were ratified, those numbers were published. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, Council, Steve Murphy, 124 Terrace Drive. It's been 2 weeks since we talked about some of the problems that we're seeing down in the West Central neighborhood, and I wanted to highlight what happened after the conversation last week and then kind of give a quick check on how we're doing on some of the promises that were made. After all the residents sat down, Mayor, you indicated that you thought that possibly this was a profiling situation where...
What?
Profiling. You indicated that we had an issue with people's race.
Oh, I don't think I said that.
No, I did. I actually went ahead and listened back to the tape.
Okay.
So, to be clear...
I don't think I said that, Steve, so I'm going to have to take exception to that till I listen to what I said, but I don't think I said that, so I'll say.
So, our issues are with the people that are hurting the neighborhoods, making it difficult for people to live there, stay in their houses, and just continue the way they've been doing for decades. So we talked a lot about code enforcement action, and I wanted to give you a chance to let us know, have you made a change to the way code enforcement works?
Steve, as I said last week, after the meeting 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, we had a meeting with all of the department heads, with all of the affected departments. And things don't change overnight. They don't change usually in 2 weeks. All of the department heads are working together now to try to develop a plan of action to positively affect your neighborhood in all respects. Carol mentioned the engineering department, the inspection department. We've had a meeting with all of those.
Right.
And we are working in a positive direction to make positive things happen in your neighborhood. I would think that you would have seen an increased presence of police cars and police officers in your neighborhood. That we can do immediately, and we have. We are working, as Carol said, you know, she is absolutely right. Chief is looking at the Cedar Rapids ordinance. We are looking at other ordinances, and the ordinances that we have on the books right now, we feel are difficult to enforce. They're cumbersome, which makes police officers, I don't know if hesitant is the right word, probably not, but for lack of a better word, I'll use that. So we are going to make it easier for police officers to be proactive and address the issues as far as the code issues, the zoning issues, nuisance property issues, crime property issues, but those things don't happen overnight.
So what mechanism are we going to have to follow the metrics? I mean, we need to know if changes are happening. If it's we're not asking for a single code, building code, to be changed. We're asking for the rule that they must be called in by a neighbor or someone in the city to be waived. That's the issue. So that's not a directive. We're not asking for an expansion of existing code. We're asking just simply that the rules that are out there get followed, and if a code enforcement drives through the area and sees overflowing dumpsters, that's at least a contact of some
Absolutely.
sort.
And that's been done and is being done.
Okay, so that's been changed already.
No, nothing has been changed. We are just being more aggressive in the enforcement of the codes that we have on the books.
Okay.
We have not changed any of the codes, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so as far as police presence, we did, after the meeting 2 weeks ago, we did have another incident in the neighborhood, and our response time was 5 minutes and 36 seconds, verified by Chief Chalka. At 9:45 at night, in response to a call of an unknown person knocking on an elderly person's door. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get a feel for, I understand, I was definitely explained why it took 5 minutes and 36 seconds. We had officers doing other things, and we were priorities, and maybe the call was tagged wrong with priority, or we could have done more. But 5 minutes and 36 seconds in that neighborhood when you're by yourself and someone's outside trying to do something that you've not authorized them to do feels like a long time. So it's great to see more police presence, but when we call and we have a metric that we can look at, it's 5 minutes, 36 seconds. And that seems like a long time. Are you comfortable with a 5 minute, 36 second?
Mr. Murphy, we had this conversation last Monday, and response times are based on officer availability,
Absolutely.
What they're doing, how far they are away, so many things that, the police department is aware of the situation in your neighborhood, and we will get there as soon as we possibly can to any call, now and in the future.
So, as I finish my time, and I appreciate your time, and we'll have more of these opportunities to have some dialogue, it's disconcerting as a resident when the city uncovers an additional $1.9 million in funding, and we can talk about it, whether it's a tax or it's fee. It's coming out of our pockets, so we call it whatever we want. And none of that is directed to additional enforcement action. This is a neighborhood that...
What are you talking about, Steve? I'm sorry.
I think it's an opportunity to take the $1.9 million and put additional officers on the street past the 125 sworn officers.
Actually, if you're talking about the franchise fee that I'm
We are.
proposing, that will help keep the officers that we have, rather than laying officers off, which will be certainly looked at should we not adopt the fee.
It's hard for neighborhood to hear that there's an additional $1.9 million revenue source untapped prior to this year, and we're told that $750 in gas is too much for the city budget to bear.
Okay.
So it's hard for us to say, let's see what actually, it's not a PR issue, it's what's actually happening in the neighborhood, and as changes to the code and changes to directive of the city employees, we'd just like to be informed.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your time.
Motion to receive and file oral comment.
Now, I think we still have somebody that wants to speak.
Hi, I'm Ray Sonkson, and I live at 1264 Northey A little bit about this franchise tax. Are Catholic schools going to be exempt, or churches?
No. Yeah, and again, we will have a hearing on that on the 18th. So, I mean.
Okay, but a franchise fee is still a tax.
Well, Mr. Sorensen, what we are doing is the city will charge Mid-American Energy Company for the right for them to use our right-of-ways and our streets and our sidewalks and all of the services that they provide to you. They will pass that fee on to you as a cost of doing business, I assume. So you can call it what you will. There has been court cases and attorneys general's opinions that it is a fee and not a tax.
Well, Obama said that same thing on Washington. He tried to call it something else.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Jim Chapman, 224 Birch.
Jim?
On that profiling, you did say something, Buck, when I asked about all the people walking up and down the street at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ryan Madison, 650 Dawes Street. Sorry I didn't prepare anything, and I don't plan to take too much of your time, but tonight when I was at home sitting, listening to this about the New World Lounge, I told my wife I wasn't going to come, but when I heard somebody blatantly put down my neighborhood, I knew I had to come and speak up. And first of all, I want to let Mr. David Goodson know my neighborhood is not a bad neighborhood, and I don't care about his catfish or anything like that. Secondly, it didn't come to a surprise, but it was disgusting to see that you guys passed this, this license. Mr. Hart or Mr. Getty, it's not you guys that live in that neighborhood, and when a gunfire goes off, you got to go in your bedroom, your son's bedroom, and snatch him to the ground. It's none of you guys. It's me. It's people who look like me and people who live in my neighborhood. I don't care if it's a black person that owns the establishment. I don't care if it's white person, Chinese, Mexican, Oriental, whatever they are. If they're running a piss poor management and they can't control their patrons, the establishment shouldn't be there, point blank. It is a safety concern for the citizens that live in that community. 3 years ago, Mr. Trucker vouched for him, and he was new. 3 years ago, I brought a petition with over 200 and some people that live in that neighborhood. Constituency that Mr. Getty, you said you would vote the way they want you to vote, but you didn't do it tonight. That said they didn't want that establishment in that neighborhood. The people that live there, the people that pay taxes in that neighborhood. There's a such thing as good corporate citizens and bad corporate citizens. And what we have here is a bad corporate citizen. When you have litter, broken glasses on the ground where the kids can't ride their bikes on the sidewalk, they have to take the street or walk in the street because of the debris. That is an issue. When you have kids that can't safely walk down the street or play in their front yard, that is a safety issue. And that establishment brought some of those issues to our community. 3 years ago, we didn't have gunshots ringing in our neighborhood. 3 years ago, I didn't have a problem with my son walking down the street to his friend's house 3 years ago. But now I do. And when you vote for 75, because 75 people came here that always come here and back minority agendas like that, and they don't live in that neighborhood, that is an issue. Because the people that live in that neighborhood, they know you guys don't care about the neighborhood. So they're not going to waste their time coming here every Monday night to say, hey, we don't want those type of establishments in our neighborhood. Hey, why don't you do something positive for our neighborhood? They're tired of it. You guys don't, you never vote the way the people that live in that neighborhood want, so why should they come? They're hard-working citizens. And they're not going to waste, how long, 2 hours of their time to come and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm done. But once again, it didn't come to a surprise to me tonight, but I am disgusted. I wanted to express my disgust of what you guys did tonight, and hopefully you guys go back and learn from those and make some changes, because we did provide you guys with a petition 3 years ago. And also, the KCFC, they supposed to have permanently closed that down. Cones inside the drive-thru is not a permanently closing that window. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. All right, if no one else, yes, sir. quickly, Mr. Chapman. This is your second trip.
It'll be
Okay.
quick.
Okay.
Jim Chapman, 224 Birch. I agree with him.
Thank you.
Motion to receive and file oral comments and adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't say a word about people.